everybody, and happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend, and welcome to another edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live right here on Giants.com and the Giants mobile app. We wondered when we built this new set if we could fit three guys. Well, we can fit three guys. Schmeelk, Dottino, Lance with you. Thank goodness one of them is not Howard Cross, because half of both of us would be off of camera. Thanks for being with us today, folks. Well, we have all three preseason games in the books. We have our 53-man roster cut down, which I will call the initial 53-man roster because it probably will change again at some point before week one. That comes your way Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Tomorrow it's Madeline and Jonathan, so I figured we should get the three of us on, give you your final 53s or our initial 53s, see how close we are and what some of the pressure points are going to be in doing this roster. Before we get there, guys, I just want to throw a couple things out so the folks understand. For guys that are hurt, first and foremost, if you IR them before the 53-man roster, they're out for the year. Problem. All right? Problem number two, if a guy is injured and you waive him when you make the final roster cut down, they have to be waived injured, which means you cannot bring them back until, I believe, week 10 of the regular season, maybe week 8. Either way.
It's at least 8.
But at that point, they're free agents, and they can sign with anybody they want. So that's the danger of waiving somebody injured.
Correct.
All right? If you want to put someone on the 4-game IR to start the year, they must be on the initial 53-man roster, take up a roster spot, then they go on the injured list. Why am I bringing this up off the top of the show? Not to depress people, not to bore people, but the Giants did have a bunch of injuries of varying degrees in that final preseason game that we do not know the severity of. Go down the list, Javarius Owens' hamstring being one of the major ones, Gary Bretwell's missed games, Nick McLeod's missed games. We don't know how serious these injuries are, so how do we know what they're going to do with those spots? We don't. We're going to do the best that we can. One injury we did get from over the weekend, and we'll touch on that before we get to our predictions here, guys. Bryce Ford-Wheaton, we got word he had a knee injury earlier in that game. I don't think there was any indication it was going to be that serious, but you never know with knees until you put him in the MRI machine, and it came out with a torn ACL, and he's going to be out for the entire year. And, Paul, I'll start with you. I thought he had a real chance to stick on this roster just because of all the special teams reps he was getting in prominent spots on punt return and punt coverage.
It looks to me like besides the bonus or the signing bonus guarantee that they gave him to come in as an undrafted rookie free agent, they were trying to do everything they could to find ways to give him a chance to make it. I don't think he had done enough on special teams for me that I would not have put him on my 53.
And frankly, I thought he was somewhat inconsistent as a receiver.
He had 2 plays he should have made in Detroit that he did not.
He had some drops, yes.
So while they were doing everything they could to give him chances, it would not have been enough for me. He would have been waived, and I would have tried to bring him back on the practice squad. That's how I looked at it. You guys may have felt differently, but I don't think he would have made it for me.
He was bubble for me.
Yeah, I don't think he was a lock at all to make the roster. I think that they have overwhelming competition at that position. And like I said, I don't think the Giants are in a position to keep one guy at the wide receiver spot simply who plays special teams. I just don't think they're in that luxurious position. So even if he was healthy, I still think it would have been a huge question mark as to whether or not he would have made the 53.
All right, let's go through our numbers here, and then we will kind of talk about these other issues as we go along. All right, quarterback. Does anyone have Tommy DeVito on their 53? He did a lot in the preseason games. He certainly, I'm sure, gave this front office something to think about with the way he played. I'm sure they do not want to lose him. If they do not include him on that initial 53-man roster, did either of you, include Tommy DeVito?
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
Me neither. Okay, so both of us have Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor.
Correct.
You know what?
How
though,
much
John?
did you? Because I thought about it a little bit when I did this exercise this morning, and I'm like, well, you know what? Is that a guy you just can't afford to lose because you want a third quarterback here that knows the system? And that's kind of the thought process that went through my head. But I said, you know what? I think they'll roll the dice there. I don't think he'll get claimed. But to Tommy DeVito's credit, the fact he even made this a debate at this point of the year is a credit to him.
I will say this, and I felt going into the Jets game that I was more concerned about who my 16-man practice squad was going to be because we knew that almost none of the starters were going to play. So we were looking at guys who were battling for the second string and third string positions and the 16-man practice squad. To me, Tommy DeVito had solidified a practice squad spot after the first 2 games.
I agree.
And then enhanced his hold on a practice squad spot against the Jets, in my opinion.
No, that interception was not great.
It was not great, but I like the way he bounced back.
100%.
Yeah. Well, it was a sidearm throw, so he didn't put himself in a great position.
And it was the pump fake, too.
Yeah, correct. Well, that came after the pump fake, so you telegraphed the pass to the defender, and you gave the defender an opportunity to make a jump cut on that pass. I don't think, once again, any team, unless they're so concerned about their backup quarterback, is going to keep 3. Because I think the luxury of keeping, once again, a guy in the practice squad, calling him up prior to the game, and then having him ready. God forbid you need the emergency quarterback. You don't need to keep 3 on the 53.
Remember, They do have that new emergency quarterback rule that can only be utilized for guys on the 53-man roster.
Well, correct. That's exactly what I was referring to.
Exactly. So we'll see if that does make teams maybe more willing to keep the third guy on, because you can keep him active as a freebie on game days instead of having an extra inactive.
Well, true, but he still counts against the 53.
He does. That's
You're
correct.
not getting around that. So you're sacrificing a roster spot to hold on to a third quarterback.
I was more talking about your game day. I guess it's 48 now. I guess.
On game days.
With the practice squad guys.
Right. You get those 2 activations.
But remember, if you put the third quarterback in and then one of the other 2 guys gets cleared, you have to take the third quarterback out.
Correct.
That's another part of the rule that's important to note.
Absolutely. I'm sure the 49ers would have liked to have an emergency quarterback in that playoff game, which is what all these.
Sure.
I'm sure that's what every coach is thinking about now. Is like, oh my goodness, if I have a game and 2 freak things happen, and then I'm stuck with my running back running the Wildcat, you're stuck.
It's a window dressing rule. I just don't think it's going to come into play.
I totally agree with you, but I had to throw it out there for the fans to consider it. All right, let's go to running back here, guys. I think we all agree: Barkley, Gray, and Breida. Right, 3 guys on. Now here's the question. Initially, I did not have a 4th running back on. The more and more I've watched the special team alignments late in camp, they always seem to have a running back in one of those groups. The question is Gary Brightwell going to be healthy for the start of the regular season? So I don't know the answer to that. I think if Brightwell's healthy, it's him. If it's not, I think Deshaun Corbin has a real shot here. So I have one of those 2 running backs as a 4th running back on for me. Lance, how about you?
Yeah, I have a 4th running back too. I have Brightwell on the roster, but I have a caveat that he's a candidate to go on IR.
Sure.
So, I mean, he makes the initial 53. They put him on IR. They give him a little bit more time to get healthy if the knee injury's not right, and then he's a candidate to be brought back. Brightwell has overwhelming experience on special teams. It makes him attractive to justify at least putting him on the initial 53.
I could not have said it better myself. I am totally in cohesion with you, Lance. And to be frank with you, again, Giants special teams, the coverage units are a problem for me, and they have been the entire offseason. That has not changed. And Gary Brightwell is a guy who is one of their better special teams players. So I just could not see fit to cut him. He's on my 53.
Okay, so we're on the same page there. And I have Brightwell on, but if he ends up getting waived injured, because, again, we have zero idea what his injury is. Body part, severity, we know nothing. So that's something that we have to caveat with that. Wide receivers, I wound up with 6. I figure at this point, if they haven't activated Wan'Dale Robinson yet, I mean, I don't know why you do it in the next, what is it at this point, 27 hours? I just feel like it's, or 28 hours, whatever it is. I think that would be unlikely, but who knows? I've seen weird things in this league before. So I have 6, and I think, for a position that I thought was going to be a bit tough to pare down, this actually was one of the easier ones for me when all is said and done. It's Hodgins, Slayton, Campbell, Hyatt, Shepard, and Beasley, and the fact that they used Shepard on a punt return, I think in that preseason game was telling that he's going to be on the roster, and that's a potential role for him.
I agree.
The Giants also cut Colin Johnson over the weekend. That, to me, is a favor to him. They think he's an NFL player, and they think he deserves the best shot to be on a 53. So if you cut him early, other teams know he's there, so they can adjust their rosters accordingly. If he's not claimed by anybody, I would expect him to be back on the practice squad in some way, shape, or form. My guess is that he will get claimed by somebody. We'll see. And then, like I said, I have Wan'Dale Robinson on PUP, and then I have Jamison Crowder. Despite his punt return prowess, I do not have him making it. And again, a big reason is because I saw Paul Shepard do that punt return in the game in preseason game number 3.
Yeah, I'm going to assume Robinson is PUP also. And I'm going to keep Beasley because I have to be consistent. I said it last week. He's done nothing to work himself off the roster.
And Dable loves him.
We just don't know about the leg injury.
Yes, he has a leg injury as well. Dable has said it's not serious for him, and he's a veteran, so probably not a ton of value playing him in these preseason games anyway, but it's something to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with the 6, and it's the 6 you have, John. I would say this, if for some reason Beasley is a little worse than what we know, then Crowder takes that spot for me.
Yep, I agree.
But Right now, this is why I'm telling people, I'll give you my 53. It's too hard without the injury information knowledge to predict what they're going to do. But I've got Beasley as my 6.
I actually have them holding on to 7 because I'm anticipating maybe Robinson does get activated. I mean, the fact that he was working out on the field last week showed that I think he's getting closer, and I don't think they had any ammunition to play him in the preseason. I'm going with the assumption they actually activate him from PUP, and then I'm also going with the possibility Beasley maybe gets put on injured reserve, just like Gary Brightwell. So I don't think it's not staying at 7.
I got it.
I have 7 on the initial. That is going to be very short-lived once the dust settles.
You have Beasley IR'd by tomorrow or after
The 53. Yes.
That's okay. Which means he's not on your 53.
Well,
No,
no, he's on
the
my initial 53,
but
and
then
then
he
I
goes
take
on
him off to
IR.
go on IR.
And
I
this
got
is the
it.
first one.
Because I think part of the rationale is the value, much like Sterling Shepard, having him in the facility, around the roster. I think that's a valuable commodity.
It's very plausible.
Yeah.
Okay. The only issue there is that to hide him, if you will, for a day, you're exposing somebody else, which could be very dangerous.
Sure. 100%.
Very true.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the tight end list. This, to me, we just don't know about Tommy Sweeney's medical condition, so that makes this very difficult as well. Also, Chris Myrick, who is the other 4th tight end option along with Ryan Jones. He hurt his hand in the game on Saturday night. Again, we don't know the severity of that injury, so it's hard for us to judge. So I kept it simple. Instead of trying to do a bunch of mechanics and gymnastics, I just kept 3. Waller, Bellinger, and Cage are exactly the guys you thought it would be. Paul?
Exactly. There's no reason to change those 3.
Yeah, I'm with you, too. I think Sweeney right now, his medical and his health questions make it a tough gamble to put him on the 53-man roster.
All right, let's go to the offensive line, guys. I ended up sticking with 9 here. The offensive tackles, Andrew Thomas, Evan Neal, Matt Peart, despite his struggles in the 3rd preseason game, I think he's done enough elsewise in camp and in other games where he's on. Tyree Phillips is a tackle guard swing. And then the interior offensive linemen, this was pretty simple. John Michael Schmitz, Mark Lewinsky, Josh Azudu, Ben Bredesen, and Marcus McKeithen were my 5 guys there for 9 total. Lance, what did you do there?
Yeah, I believe I have the same exact 9 as you. My backups are Azudu, Phillips, McKeithen, and Peart.
Yep.
And Phillips, to me, is a candidate to go on injured reserve. I do think something's going to change on the offensive line. I don't think those are going to be the 9 at the start of the regular season.
Now,
I think
he did practice last week, Phillips, so he's definitely on
correct.
his way
He's
back.
in the border of maybe being ready, but whether he goes on IR, I don't see those 4 being the 4 backups. I think it's possible they make a waiver claim at this position and spice things up a little bit.
I know you were debating going to 10, Paul. Did you?
I went 10. Shane Lemieux's my 10th. I kept him. I thought he played extremely well at guard in Detroit.
You couldn't pull Shane Lemieux out of your heart, could you?
I've always had a soft spot for him.
I love Shane, too. He's a great guy.
And
I
quite
hope he
frankly,
makes it.
I thought he was their best lineman against the Jets.
Yeah, I have not gone back and rewatched that tape yet. I did
He's probably
couple
the
interviews
only
this morning.
guy who did not have a really checkered or poor evening.
The problem is that I think he's been a little inconsistent at center.
No doubt.
And
No
that,
doubt.
Yeah, and that to me is his most valuable aspect of making the roster.
But he's their
I would
third
argue.
string center.
No, I understand.
Third string.
Well,
which
and that's
means
more of a
the
reason.
odds of him playing are not
True,
great.
but it's also hard to have a guard only
Yeah.
as the 10th offensive
Well, I
lineman.
think
I think, would you rather keep a guy like Harlow, who's maybe shown he can do both a little bit? I don't know. But
It
again,
depends on whether or not you think he's capable of actually doing
well,
that.
that is another question altogether. That is correct.
I've made my decision.
He has played both. Let me put it that
Yeah.
way.
I have made my decision.
All right.
I mean, I think, well, just real quick, I think Bredesen would slide in for John Michael Schmitz in the event that
Oh, for sure.
he goes down, and then I think they just slide in another guard to replace Ben Bredesen without necessarily needing to know if Shane Lemieux could play center.
And I think Shane Lemieux is an easy practice squad addition.
Oh, yeah.
If in fact he does not get on that initial 53. And by the way, this was one of the tougher ones for me. I have a guy in red here or there. Lemieux's one of my guys in red, so he was one of my last guys that kind of wore. And again, I hope he is on because I love Shane. He's a good dude, and he's healthy for the first time in a while. So hopefully
know.
he does figure out a way to
It's
get
like
on
the
that
NCAA
roster.
tournament, the first 4 in and the first 4 out.
Yes,
He's also the kind of bulldog player that this coaching staff likes.
You think we have some type of play-in tournament in the next 28 hours, like in the NCAAs, to try to figure out those last couple spots? No. All right, let's go defensive tackle, and this is one of the things that we talked about last week, guys, because they have a lot of good, young, talented players at this group, and then a bunch of established veterans too. And I went with the philosophy: we're just going to keep the best players and the young guys we like. So I have 7 guys at this spot. which seems like a lot given for most plays, except for maybe some base defense and goal line and short yardage. You're only going to have 2 of these guys on the field at the same time. And we get to game days this year, folks. 2 of these guys will probably be inactive on game days and not ready to go. But I have your easy ones, Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams. You got Nacho, Ashawn Robinson. And then the 3 young guys. Remember, these are drafted players and an undrafted free agent from last year that I know this staff really likes. Jordan Riley, Ryder Anderson, and DJ Davidson. So those are my 7 on the defensive line. Paul, what about you?
Williams, Lawrence, Robinson, Nacho, Riley, and man, I can't do it because I don't know about Davidson and Anderson's health. Davidson's back to practice, but he hasn't shown me enough.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, the only reason I would keep him, and he's like a question mark for me, is because do they feel that he's too good of a potential player to let go?
And that's why I said my philosophy was just keep the young guys you like.
Yeah.
Even if it's not position numbers don't line up.
My
right.
problem is I need help on special teams, and I don't think he's going to give me that. So I'm going to save that spot for somebody probably in the back 7. So I'm going to go without him, and that's it. I'm going to go with 5.
And that could also be a spot, too, and no Ryder Anderson for you either.
No.
Again,
he's injured.
He's an injured guy, too, so I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know how serious it is. They haven't talked about that, so that's another guy where if he's hurt and he can't make the roster, that would obviously change the instruction.
I'm going with the assumption he's injured, so I'm going to take 5.
How about you, Lance?
Well, Ryder Anderson, Brian Dable, when he last spoke to the media, probably gave us more on Anderson than anybody else and didn't seem very optimistic that he was close. So I'm going with the assumption that Anderson's probably the strongest candidate to go on injured reserve. So I kept 6, but Anderson to me is going on IR, and that means they'll have 5. I did not keep Davidson.
Now remind me, Lance, you're good with these rules. If you IR him before the season, can you still elect him to return halfway through? Are those guys subject to that rule to return earlier in the year?
I'm IRing him after he makes the
you're
first
putting him at 53 and then
I'm putting Ryder Anderson.
Gotcha.
4 games. Yeah, but remember, you could bring back 8 guys at any point in the season.
8 moves.
Yeah,
you could use 2 moves on one guy
if
he gets hurt twice.
So I mean, you want to put 10 guys on injured reserve after the first 53. More power to you. Nobody says you got to bring back 10.
Right.
But 8 is a pretty nice flexible number over the course of the season.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why my mindset is, these are too many guys that could potentially go on IR. The league's telling you can put as many guys as you want.
I agree.
You just have limits on who you can bring back.
All right.
And I would rather roll the dice with DJ Davidson because going back to what Paul said.
Rolling the dice in terms of subjecting him to waivers?
Put him through waivers.
Okay,
I just think regardless of his traits, I don't think there's enough film of him being on an NFL field.
Oh, not in the NFL,
for
sure.
another team to say we're going to sacrifice a player for DJ Davidson. So for that reason alone, I'll roll the dice. I'll take my chances.
Fair enough. All right, let's go to the edge spot. Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari, Jihad Ward, and Taman Fox for me. And again, if Ryder Anderson's an injury thing, then I would have Zimenez on as my kind of last guy. But I only have those 4. Thibodeau, Ojulari, Ward, Fox. Lance, how about you?
Well, let's see. I have 9 total. I just combined the linebackers. That's
fine.
what I did,
Sure.
just to make it easy. So I have Ojulari, Thibodeau, Okereke, McFadden, Beavers, Simmons, Ward, Coughlin, and Fox. Those are my 9 outside and inside linebackers. I just put them all together.
So you have the same edge guys as I do. Paul, do you have Zimenez on?
No, I don't. I went with this is part of the issue when I said to you I have 1 spot left and I have to decide.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Wilborn because, again, this guy was picked up off waivers for special teams purposes from the Broncos a week ago. I have to believe there's a reason they did that. He played specials the other night. Mm-hmm. He did okay. It wasn't spectacular, but he did okay. That's what this guy does. I need to take that into account. So Wilborn is going to be the extra linebacker instead of Zimenez.
Okay, and then for the inside guys, I have Okereke, Beavers, McFadden, Simmons, and Coughlin, which I believe is identical to Lance. I think Coughlin's done enough as a defender in preseason games, and he's a good special teamer. And then Simmons, again, he's kind of an edge inside linebacker crossover type of player anyway. But those are my 5 inside guys. Paul?
Inside, I got Beavers, Simmons, Coughlin, McFadden, and Okereke.
Okay, so we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Coughlin was active against the Jets, too, on defense. Yeah, he made a few tackles for loss, so I think that was encouraging. Not to say that's the end-all, be-all. The other thing that I'll just throw in about Wilbur that you mentioned, remember, Julian Davenport was also brought in late, and he was cut the other day. So I don't know
But
how
he's
much...
not a special teams
No,
player.
I get that. I'm just saying the timing of a player being added to the roster is not necessarily...
Truth be
a lock,
told,
is all I'm saying.
Davenport was brought in to be basically a guinea pig because they knew they needed snaps.
No, they needed bodies on the
preseason
offensive line.
games.
That's fair.
That's not why Wilburn was brought in.
Okay, no. All fair points. I'm just saying I wouldn't read so much into the timing of when a player is added to the roster. That's all.
All right, let's go to cornerback here, guys. And this, for me, was one of the tougher spots, to be honest with you. So some of these guys are crossover, so maybe we'll do cornerback and safety together then because some of these guys can be counted at both spots.
Yeah, they're interchangeable.
So let's go for the group. I have 10 total between the two spots, all right? I have Adoree Jackson, Deonte Banks, Trey Hawkins, Cordell Flott. Those are the easy guys. The easy guys at safety, McKinney, Belton, Pinnock. Now, here are the guys that were tougher. I have Bobby McCain on, okay? I think he's too versatile and can do too many different things. I don't think you can afford to let him go. Nick McLeod is one of the injury guys. We don't know what his injury status is, how close he is, and all that other stuff. So I think if he's healthy, we know how much they liked him last year. He started at outside cornerback for them last year. There's a reason they tried him at safety in camp. They like him as a player. So as long as he is relatively healthy, I think he's on. And then I think this group seems to like their drafted players. And I know we hurt his hamstring. I don't know how serious it is. Javarius Owens. Lance has mentioned this a couple times. I think he's the guy you put on the 53, and then maybe he's an IR candidate after your 53 goes in. And then you add, Paul, one of those other guys back, whether maybe it's a Wilborn, or if he doesn't make it, or maybe if a Coughlin doesn't make it on your first 53, or Zimenez, someone like that, then that guy can get added back on.
Absolutely.
After you put Owens. I just don't think they're going to want Owens subjected to waivers as one of the guys in their rookie class.
Yeah, I would concur. I just don't know how serious that hammy is.
No, neither do I. No
and
idea.
if that sucker is ripped, I mean, if it's a full tear.
Well, then you would just IR him for the season and IR him now before
Bingo.
you even do the 53. Correct.
Bingo. And quite frankly, I'm going to go with that scenario for the purposes of my roster.
No, that's fine.
Is that
it opens up a roster spot. It makes it easier on him.
No, it's just he's a red shirt to me.
No, I get it.
You know,
I get it.
So, and then obviously, McLeod is the other issue for me because he is the best of their returning special teams guys. I do not want to lose him. The fact that he's done nothing in weeks. Yeah,
in fact, he got hurt before the first preseason game, right? Yeah,
it's been weeks.
But almost a month.
He's done nothing.
I know.
That's a risk for me. So as much as I want him, I can't keep him. So he's not going to make it for me. McCain suffered a concussion the other day.
Yep.
I don't know how long that's going to be.
That's a good point, too.
But
Luckily, you have 2 weeks before the first game, which give you some.
That's why I'm going to keep McCain.
Runway. Yeah.
I'm going to keep McCain. So McCain, Belton, McCain and Belton are my safeties right now that I'm keeping behind Pinnock and McKinney.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I thought seriously about Alex Cook. My dark horse undrafted rookie free agent. I like him. There's a part of me that almost put him here, but I decided to take Wilborn instead of Cook as my special teams flex guy.
And it looks like also you have him ahead of Deontay Johnson, too, as one of the question guys.
Baldonado, Johnson, these were all questions for me. Cam Brown was a question for me. I needed a special teams guy.
How about corner? Who are your guys at corner?
You know,
you didn't go through your corners.
I went with Banks and Jackson, obviously, and Hawkins.
Yep.
I went Flott and Aurier.
Oh, you put Aurier.
Yeah, and that was not easy for me to do, but I did.
Okay.
He's just so inconsistent.
Well, especially if you're worried about McLeod. That's the thing. If McLeod's too injured and he doesn't make it, Aurier has to be on because you need another outside cornerback. You have to.
Not only do you have to have one because I don't think Darnay Holmes is making the team. Okay. The other reason is if you watch the snaps on specials, Aurier in the last 2 weeks started getting more and more snaps on the coverage units.
Yes.
So to me, that enhanced his value despite his inconsistencies in the defense.
It's him and he's really the last guy that didn't get on for me. So I think with all these other injury issues, I think odds are he is on your 53 when the season starts. But we'll have to see how these other injury issues kind of play out. Lance, how about you?
I fully expect there to be some changes in the next 48 hours.
100%.
There will be some IR jockeying going on.
With all
There's
these
no
injuries,
doubt about that.
I think this is the hardest time we've had doing this.
Yes.
Year,
so many guys banged up.
All the injury
Yes.
issues.
Yeah.
Luckily, Luckily now, and again, all these players are important to some extent or another. Luckily, none of these injuries that we're talking about are guys that are playing to be in your starting 11 or 12 on offense or defense.
But could still be valuable when it's all said and done.
100%.
Because you're not going to get away with just 22.
Yep.
Now, Oruwariye, remember, because he's a vested veteran, you could cut him and then just bring him back too.
Yes, you can.
So that's why
there are
I
no
also
waivers to make that clear to people.
Yes.
You have to be less than 4 years of experience to go through the waiver system where a guy can get claimed.
Yeah, so you could tell him, look, we're
Yeah.
going to bring you back, dude. Like, we're going to let you go now. We promise you to bring you back and we'll pay you. Just, sit tight, and then maybe you can convince him not to sign elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, they could even do that with a guy like Cole Beasley, too.
Or Bobby
Absolutely.
McCain.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of vested veterans on this team.
Or Bobby McCain, for that
Yeah,
matter.
correct.
Frankly,
Bobby McCain's another one, too.
They could
Yeah.
also do that with Shep.
Sure.
If
yeah.
they really wanted to.
Absolutely.
Sterling, if they
Yeah.
tell him, Shep, we got a procedural thing we got to do. We're going to bring you back tomorrow for the same salary. No questions
Heck,
asked. You good with that?
You can even offer him a little bit of a bump, too, to make
You
it
could.
worth his while.
You
for
could.
sure.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's always nice when you don't have to worry about subjecting a player through waivers because that means that they have the choice where they want to go
That's a good
after
point.
they're let go.
It's a very good point.
So that I took into consideration because I have McCain, McLeod, and Owens on my 53, even though there's baggage, as you guys explained, with all three. Though I'm not overly concerned about McCain with the concussion. I think there's enough time. McLeod and Owens maybe a little bit more concerning, but I'm not willing to roll the dice with McLeod or Owens like I am with DJ Davidson because there's too much film and experience for those guys. And Owens is very valuable as a special teamer going back to his college days. And I think they need that boost. So that's why I'll go with them on the initial 53. Let's see what the medical team tells us. If we need to make a move, so be it.
And then, of course, you have your special teamers, Graham Gano, Jamie Gillen, and Casey Kreider. Let me ask you something, Paul. Lyons, the backup long snapper, he's been around all summer. Is there any shot that he overtakes Kreider?
I don't think so.
Then why have him around for this long? It was just something I was thinking about over the weekend.
To alleviate the workload, maybe?
Yeah, could be.
I mean,
Could be.
I know that. But, with these guys, I mean, listen.
Too much
they don't want to
bending
overdo
down.
it.
Yeah.
Anything's possible.
And I love Casey. He's a great long snapper. I imagine. I want him to be here. I hope he's going to be here.
Yeah,
great.
I'd be really shocked.
It was just something that came to mind, thinking that he, very rarely do you see them carry two long snappers that deep into camp, which is why I asked the question.
Didn't they had the long snapper out of Harvard, right? What was it, a year or two ago?
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was on the roster, too, for some time.
They
if memory
practice
serves me
squatted
correct.
the former Jaguar a few years ago, too, during the COVID season. They kept him around, and then they practice squatted him because they thought it was worthy of keeping a practice squad long snapper since it's a specialized position. And they were afraid that if Kreider had come down with COVID,
Right, that makes sense.
they would not have another long
No, that's
snapper.
understandable.
For sure.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
All right, 201-939-4513. Go check out the Giants Huddle podcast, folks. A great episode coming up. If it's not posted right now, it should be within a couple of minutes. Had a chance to talk to former Vikings GM Rick Spielman. He basically went into the nitty-gritty of putting a 53-man roster together, what these yesterday and today is like, what considerations you make, the waiver wire, injuries, all that stuff we talked about, and we did a little bit of a season preview as well, so check that out. And late last week, I had a chance to talk to Prince Amukamara when he came in here to announce his retirement. So that was fun as well. Go check it out on the Giants Huddle podcast, Giants.com, your Giants mobile app, podcast platforms. And, of course, if you're on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star positive review for all of our podcasts if you like what you hear. All right, let's get to the calls at 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. We'll lead off with Tom in Stratford first. Tom, what's up?
Happy Monday, guys.
What's up?
hi.
Essentially, I agreed with just about everything that you went through. However, I did have Crowder on my final count because I'm not convinced Shepard will last the whole season. I had Lemieux instead of Pert because I've just seen him get burned too many times by pass rushers.
The problem, Tom, is that you're short a tackle then.
Yeah, they play different positions.
Very dangerous.
Well, I was going to say that I'm looking to pick up a tackle after.
Good luck.
Cut down.
Tom, here's the problem. There are 3 positions where you're not going to find a good player on cutdown day. Pass rusher,
Okay.
offensive tackle, quarterback.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I
And
thought
corner,
the
for that
Houston
matter. There's really
Texans
4. You're not going to find one.
And there were 2 trades involving offensive linemen over the last few days, which
Dotson,
also
yep.
is another indication how difficult and challenging it is to grab an
You
offensive
know,
lineman.
You're going to be lucky to find somebody with a heartbeat at one of those spots. That's how difficult
hard.
it is. So,
I-
I laugh. There are people out there who are trying to crush Matthew Parrott when he's had the best camp of his career, and he is competing to be the 3rd or maybe 4th tackle. If you consider Phillips as potentially the third tackle, then Pert is the fourth tackle. Do you honestly believe that there are 31 fourth-string offensive tackles better than Matthew Pert? Do you honestly believe that someone's going to pop free in the next 24 hours that's better than he is? Are you out of your mind?
Are they going to dress 4 tackles on game day?
I could see both Parrott and Phillips be active.
It's absolutely possible.
Because Phillips can also play guard. That's why.
Yeah.
Phillips is a crossover guy.
What's his name? McKeithen can also play tackle.
McKeithen has not played tackle
since he's been here.
Well, he did a little bit before he tore his ACL last year, but he hasn't done it
coming
since.
Back.
He would not be ready to play. Let me put it this way: he would, if they need him to play tackle week 1 against Dallas. Then you would just find someone with a heartbeat on on the free agent market and you bring them in.
If Pert's playing tackle on week 1, we're in trouble.
No, but Tom, just keep this in mind. Look, Parrott had a rough game against the Jets. No one's going to argue that.
Pass pro, particularly.
He got beaten pass pro. He had some missed assignments, too, where he let guys get inside of him. It was a rough go.
Penalty,
Penalties as well, Lance, thank you. It was a rough go. But it doesn't erase what he did in the previous 2 preseason games and what he's done in practice. So one game doesn't erase all the good stuff. No, he did. No, Tom, he did.
He played well.
He did.
He played well.
I
wish you had been out there in Detroit for the dual practices, too, because he handled Hutchinson. Okay. But you weren't there, right?
I didn't see that.
That's right. So I understand your opinion. It's a bit jaded because you didn't see all the stuff that he did that was good. I get it.
But on the defensive side, actually, I did not have Beavers on my final roster. I was very unimpressed with his performance Saturday night, whereas I was very impressed with Carter Coughlin and the new guy, Simmons.
I think Beavers is closer to the bubble than probably a lot of people think, but as a draft pick coming off an ACL in his second year, I think they'll be willing to give him a little bit more time to see how much better he can get.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you got to give him leeway. You know, you look at offensive players, running backs, for example, sometimes it takes a full year coming back from an ACL. I mean, look at Saquon Barkley. Yeah. So you got to at least look at it from that standpoint. Plus, he's too versatile, I think, to sacrifice somebody at this point. And listen, a lot of what the last caller said, and this goes back to what you said, Paul, you can't judge everything based on one preseason game.
And that was one thing I asked Spielman about. He goes, "Look, guys, we're looking at these guys from back in the spring.
The spring, of course. Yeah.
One game.
How they do in the meeting room.
All that
I mean,
stuff,
they're putting them under the microscope for everything. How they munch on a sandwich in the cafeteria, whether they use 3 napkins or 2 napkins. Okay, it's hyperbole, but you get my point. Okay?
Yeah. Now to be
fair, it's not one game on an island.
The preseason games do carry the most weight. However, as John just said, it goes all the way back to the spring. And every single player has a personnel file where it's all been logged. Every snap in practice, every snap in one-on-ones, okay? Every snap in the individual drills, that stuff all counts. So when people watch a preseason game and they see 3 hours of action and they want to slam a player for those 3 hours when his personnel file actually includes about 6 months or 7 months of work, understand, you've probably seen 1/2021st of the percentage of what he's put in front of these coaches for the last 6-7 months. So I mean,
small sample size.
It's microscopic. Microscopic.
Yeah.
Minute. Another one.
I'll give you a great example. Alex Cook was terrific in the preseason games and really did not do anything to show out during the practices. You and I were here for every practice, John. The entire offseason. We've seen every snap for every guy, individuals, one-on-ones, all of it.
Yep.
Alex Cook did not show out in those. But in the preseason games, he looks like a player. And he made plays. And the coaching staff is going to have to figure out how they balance it and what they do with him. He looks like one of those guys who's more of a gamer than he is a practice player right now to me. Whatever.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. Let's go to Abdul in Minneapolis. He's up next. Hi, Abdul.
Hey, guys. So the Giants have seemed to run their ship as a meritocracy. Like, you know, if you do well, they give you a chance.
Yeah.
For example, Hawkins, right, the rookie cornerback. So that being said, will DeVito have that same kind of luxury? Because, you know, he arguably outplayed, Tyrod. Arguably. You know what I mean?
Tyrod played 3 series in the preseason. Abdul?
Hear me out. You guys cut me off.
Oh, no, Abdul, I'm not cutting you off. Sample size matters, dude. Tyrod Taylor has a career worth of tape on the field that you look at, and he played 3 series in the preseason.
I'm going to help you out here, too, with this whole concept of full body of work. During the entire offseason and every practice, Tommy DeVito clearly played his best snaps in the preseason games. Would you agree with me?
I agree with that.
Okay? He did not necessarily have a great offseason or a great training camp, but his 3 games have absolutely earned him a chance, and I believe he will get a spot on the practice squad. Tyrod Taylor has been very good the entire offseason, but folks who only get to see the preseason games have seen a crumb of what he's done in the last 8 months.
In fairness,
so
also,
he fits into that category.
Well, and the other thing is, listen, I'm not trying to take anything away from Tommy DeVito, but when fans watch him go up against 3rd and 4th stringers who are unlikely to make 53-man rosters, can we slow down here before we crown a quarterback? Okay? Once again, I'm not taking anything. Well, go ahead and finish, because I don't understand the case then to prove that he's better than a polished vet like Tyrod Taylor and throw away his entire career. I don't understand how you can even make any semblance of an argument at this stage.
Okay, I was going to say I have not seen the practices. You guys have, and so I can't really judge it. I'm saying that just from what I have seen, the guy deserves a chance to make the 53. That's what I was going to say.
Okay,
right?
but once again, it becomes a numbers crunch, though, under those circumstances.
Abdul, the reason I stopped you to interrupt you, because you said he outplayed Tyrod Taylor.
Right.
That's why I stopped you.
What I saw.
No, and I understand. That's why I was. Well, no, Abdul, because I was giving context to the point you were making. We agree with you that DeVito certainly will get consideration for the 53-man roster. And now finish your point, please. The floor is yours.
Now, so, and also, would it, the fact that maybe cutting a veteran like Tyrod, or as a cornerback like Holmes, have money aspects, for the to maybe go pick up a veteran.
They aren't cutting Tyrod Taylor, Abdul. I'm just telling you, it's not happening.
Yeah, I don't understand even that possibility. Now, if you said to me you wanted to argue for DeVito on the 53 at the expense of some other position,
right?
I'm not going there, but at least you have a debate if you want it. But you cannot tell me that Tyrod Taylor is a consideration for cutting. He is clearly, and depending upon who you want to talk to about in the league, top 5, certainly no lower than top 10 backup quarterbacks in this league. He's not going anywhere.
The difference factor matter between the two.
Between Taylor and DeVito?
What's the difference?
Yeah.
Tyrod's a much better football player. He's seen NFL defenses. He started
by experience is overwhelming.
By far.
If you ask the 31 general managers in the league, Abdul, which quarterback they would rather have, all 31 and all 31 of their assistants will all say Tyrod.
Abdul, Tyrod has multiple starts and years of experience in the NFL. If God forbid Daniel Jones went down, you at least feel secure he could come in, he's seen defenses, he can run your offense. DeVito is all potential and optimism in that department. In the middle of a season, I don't think you want to operate based on potential and optimism. You want to base it on, I know or I have a really good idea of what I'm getting out of the guy under center. And you could go through the basics with the least amount of mistakes.
Fair enough. All right, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Abdul. And we were trying to cut you off, man, but Tyrod Taylor's not going anywhere. Yeah.
Well, and this goes back to, once again, what you see in one preseason game.
No, of course not.
And you can't make decisions based on that off the television.
How simplified all the stuff these teams are doing in these preseason games? I mean, it's night and day. You start throwing disguised defenses at that guy and everything, you don't know what he's going to look like.
Do you think the Jets were game planning for Tommy DeVito? Do you think their defensive coordinator spent the entire week, all right, guys, this is all of Tommy DeVito's passes when he was a Syracuse quarterback. So, he has a tendency when he moves his shoulder to the right, he may throw across the field. I mean, come on, let's be practical here.
But again, I want to point out that he did a really nice job of his opportunities. And the fact that I sat here this morning, I'm like, well, you know what? Do I need to make room for him? Like, can another team claim him because he did as well as he did in the preseason? That is a credit to him. Awesome job. He deserves it. But, guys, Tyrod Taylor's Tyrod Taylor now. Come on.
there's only one scenario where his initial premise would make sense, and that is if you were a really bad team. Right? If you were a really, really bad team and you knew that, you know what, you could trade him to acquire a draft pick and save yourself some cap money and say, okay, you know what, if our starter gets hurt, we're in the tank anyway. We're not a good team. We're not going anywhere. We're fine with the young developing kid. We'll make him the number 2 then, and we'll see if we can accumulate draft assets by trading this accomplished veteran who could win games. If you were a really, really bad team, that scenario would be plausible. But you're the Giants. You view yourself as a playoff contender, a solid playoff contender. And to your point, if Daniel Jones gets hurt for a game or two, Tyrod Taylor can win you a game.
Yeah.
Or 2. That's too much to ask from Tommy DeVito. I'm sorry. It just is.
And again, this isn't, I just want to stress, this is not us crushing Tommy DeVito.
No,
not
at all.
Really nice job.
Not at all.
Those two things can operate simultaneously with one another. It could be Tyrod Taylor's a far more experienced and better option at the backup, but at the same time, Tommy DeVito did show some nice flashes. I think when we have conversations like this, if you look at Tyrod Taylor and you compliment him, it gets interpreted as a slight against Tommy DeVito. It's not. Those two things are just operating parallel to one another. By the way, I think Arizona is probably the poster child of the example you're talking about.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray is a big question mark, starts the season on PUP. That's a team that could take a chance on a Tommy DeVito and making the 53-man roster.
How about what the Bears just did?
They got rid of
Tyson
P.J. Walker.
Bagent on their 53-man roster as a backup to Fields. Because he's a young guy and they want to, see what they got.
Sure. Yeah. And once again, P.J. Walker also not nearly the type of resume as a Tyrod Taylor. You're not sacrificing somebody. God forbid Fields got hurt. So all of those things are taken into consideration.
Yes. All right, let's go to Coach Marvin in Delaware. He's up next. Hi, Coach Marvin. And then Len, you're up next.
Hey, how you doing, John, Paul, and Lance?
What's up? Hi.
Doing all right.
Got 3 of y'all sitting at the table today.
Yes.
Lucky
day for you.
Real quick, I was at the game. I heard that, John. I was at the game Saturday. I stood in front of you, John, waving. I was the only one there, but I know you were busy. You working. I was hoping to catch your attention.
I'm sorry, Coach Marvin. I would have loved to talk to you. I didn't see you down there. That's my bad.
Yeah, know. I know you would have.
Well, Coach, the problem is that down there, the sun was blasting in our faces. I had to wear my sunglasses and a hat, I literally sweated through the front of my shirt. It was miserable. Oh, man, it was hot.
Yeah, I was sweating, too, just walking from the parking lot. It was a really warm night. It was good that it didn't rain or anything, so that was fine.
Yes, sir.
So I knew you was busy. And
you coming back during the season, Marvin?
I'm going out of the country on this weekend. I'll be back on Sunday for the Sunday night game. My plans is to be there. There's a rapper by the name of Joyner Lucas. His dad and me are best friends, and we both plan on – he's a Cowboy fan. So we both plan on trying to get there for that game.
All right, well, Coach, if that's the case, come to the stage on Sunday and just yell at me, wave me down. I'll make sure to keep my eyes open to find you.
Yeah, I'll try. I should have just stayed till you finished the show and catch you when you were done, but I wanted to get inside and see the warm-ups. I wanted to see everything.
No, for sure, absolutely.
But you guys know how I feel about y'all. Y'all actually right. Y'all have been put in the position just like coaches. And what I used to tell my parents in the beginning of the season, before we even start in August, my first words to them is, I lose as being the coach because I cannot satisfy all of you. Every decision I make, people are going to criticize it. And you hear it still today. You talk about Tyrod Taylor. I think you said, John, he had 3 series?
I would have to double check it. It was like 3 or 4, maybe 5.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm looking at the one in the second scrimmage. He put a touchdown pass and he ended up on his back. That tells me he stood in the pocket and he delivered the ball. He did a rollout.
Yeah, that was the Hyatt touchdown.
Right on the numbers. Yep, for a touchdown. And he rolled out, hit him right on the numbers, on the hands, and he dropped it. But it happens. That happens. DeVito, I do like him too. I actually love him. But if we can keep him on the practice squad, keep him on the practice squad. But the difference, I'm at the game this weekend. Tyrod is playing with the second and maybe third string offensive line, and the Jets got their starters.
Yeah,
in.
that was a problem.
It
That was a problem. You're not
It
wrong.
was.
These dudes were hunting. And that's
Yes.
why I'm glad that our starters don't play this game, that Jet game, the Jets, and sometimes the Giants, they look at it like a rivalry game, and it's a scrimmage. And that's why I don't like it, because you can get hurt at any game.
Yeah,
Any game.
and
Yeah,
Coach,
I mean-
to
Play
your
in the
point,
parking lot.
and Coach, to your
But
point,
in
that
game, in that particular game, they're hunting in that game.
yeah, and Coach,
because
to your
you got-
point, I want to get your take on that. I thought that Randall Cobb hit was completely out of line and unnecessary.
Yeah.
Totally.
And those are the things that happens in that game, because there are two teams that plays in the same stadium and saying, I own this town. So they play that way, and I find that game very dangerous. Every time I see it, I'm like, please don't play our starters. I think Eli got hurt in that game.
Well, also
Oshie
Mark
got hurt
Sanchez
in that
got hurt
game.
in that game too, but that was more
Yeah.
of Rex Ryan playing him behind third and fourth string offensive
Right.
linemen.
Right.
So as you can
That's right.
attest to, Marvin, that's more of just a coaching issue. I don't think it has anything to do with the rivalry personally. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the Jets starters did not play at all
There you
leading
go.
up to this.
There you
They
go.
were hungry. They
Ding.
were itching to get a warm up before the start of the regular season. Robert Saleh made it very clear he did not want the Bills game to be the first opportunity for them to brush off the rust. And those guys, like anything else, are competitors. They know they're going to do the real thing in about 2 weeks. And that's why you saw a little chippiness and a little flavor and flair. I think it had more to do with that than a rivalry, because here's the thing. Aaron Rodgers, he's on the Jets for the first time. Do you really think he cares about what the Giants are doing or any semblance of a rivalry? Doesn't
You're
rock
right,
his
Lance.
boat at all.
I'm not going to say you're right, Lance. I'm not going to say you're wrong, but it doesn't.
Well,
take
it's
a
not that I'm right or
whole
wrong. It's my
thing.
opinion, and you have your opinion. I don't think there's anybody right or
Right,
wrong.
right.
We have our different
But I'm just
perspectives.
saying,
That's it.
I can agree with what you're saying on that.
That's
but
fair.
The other part of it, sometimes all it takes is 1, 2, 5 players to create it like a rivalry.
Yeah,
You
and
got
I think
90
Marvin
of them
too.
out
And
there.
I think it's the way the Jets defense. I don't know if you've watched Hard Knocks at all. If you guys have watched it much.
Yeah, I did.
Like
I watched
the
it.
way their defensive coaches try to implore these guys to play. Even if you go back to how they talked to them in the scrimmage against, I believe it was Carolina, to go out and whatever, dominate these guys, whatever. That's
Yeah.
the message they gave
yeah.
those guys before that game
Right.
too, which is another
Exactly.
reason, to your point and Lance's point, why they came out flying.
Well, Quinnen Williams
Right,
was
right.
counting his sacks in that scrimmage on Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
He goes to the coaches. That's 9. That's 10. Aaron's taking notes.
I-
Come on. Yeah.
Coach, there was
I
a
agree.
stark difference in the priorities of these teams and these coaches in this game.
100%.
The Giants are looking to solidify backups on the depth chart and practice squad guys, and the Jets were literally trying to tune up and polish up their starters.
Which is, by the way, they're right.
It's absolutely their right. But when you have two totally contrasting priorities clashing, this is the potential that you're going to see, and that's what happened.
Right. Let me get off that real quick. I had like two more things real
Yeah, be quick.
so
Yep.
somebody else can get on. The Isaiah Simmons trade. I love the Isaiah Simmons trade. I know everybody says a 7th-round pick. I believe in this guy. Reason because I think we have a defensive coordinator that can tap into his talent. I'm not comparing him to this player, but usage of this player is similar, I believe, as Michael Parsons, using him in the same manner. It's not the same player, but the same methods, moving him around where people don't know where he is. I didn't even know he was on the field. I didn't know he had 46 on, and I'm like, who is this guy? And he made a pretty good play, but he just looked like an ordinary player with the 46 on. I didn't know who it was. and then I found out, wait a minute, Isaiah Simmons is playing today in 48 hours? That's like crazy.
What's your
So
final
I'm
point,
impressed.
Coach?
And my final, I just want to give a shout out. My son has a brand called It's Doc, Jamal Dockery. That's my son. He's now working with Jaylen Brown. So I'd like to congratulate him on this station, letting him know
All right,
that I'm
Coach.
proud of him.
Good
Appreciate
stuff.
the shout
All
out,
right.
man. Good stuff. Even though he's a Celtic, congratulations. That's okay. 2 things I want to get to. But first, Run or Walk with Giants Legends. The Giants Foundation will host a 5K Racing Kids Run presented by Quest on Sunday, October 8th at 9 a.m. at MetLife Stadium. Net proceeds will benefit the Giants Foundation. All participants will receive a commemorative T-shirt. And after the race, stay for a post-game festival with appearances by Giants Legends and a live DJ. Register now at giants.com/5K. Also, folks, there are tickets available, whether it's season tickets or it's single game tickets. Go to giants.com/tickets. For a season ticket membership, take your fam to the next level. Stay connected all year round. They're available, but they're limited. Giants.com/tickets. And while you're there, you can find out about the member benefits. And also, if there's any single game tickets that you want to purchase, there are some available for games throughout the year. So check that out. And while you're online, download Giants TV, the official Giants connected TV streaming app. It brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. All right, 2 things quick before we get to Len, and then we got about 10 more minutes to go in the show. Paul, do you now understand why you don't want to play your starters in this preseason game after you saw about 7 injuries to guys that did play in the game?
Well, my problem has nothing to do with the priorities of the coaches, which was certainly an issue. My problem is I don't think sometimes these guys have enough oil on their wheels by the time the season starts.
No, but I understand. But now you see what the risk is by
oh
trying
no,
to
the
get
risk
too
is
much oil on
the risk
wheels.
is always inherent,
Right?
And that's because of the way the system is. Again, I'd fix the system, the whole salary cap system, and everything else that in my mind is all screwed
I'm
up.
talking about playing guys in preseason
No,
games,
but it's
not the quicksand.
But
being
that's part of
operated.
it. But that's part of it. Because of free agency and the salary cap that rips the fabric of your team apart, you don't have the ability to play them like you used to. When the whole thing came in with free agency and the cap, that's when coaches started to say the risk of playing our guys too much in the preseason
Because your backups weren't as
is
good?
going to be a problem. Because your backups are guys you can sacrifice if they do get hurt in the preseason,
Right.
because it's not going to hurt your cap that much, and
get
it
you.
won't matter to you.
I get you.
That's what changed the whole thing. So
All right.
I get it. I don't particularly care for it, but I understand it.
Number 2, you might finally get to see your Isaiah Simmons pass rusher thing. And look,
I've waited for a long time.
He did not do it against an offensive tackle. Let's be clear about that.
It was a running back, yeah.
That's a matchup he has to win if he's going to be passable as a pass rusher. But I think you'll get a chance to see him in that role a little bit.
I'm thrilled with that. Now, here's the problem with Simmons as a pass rusher. You have to scheme him to do it.
Yes. Which
Okay.
is why I think the Micah Parsons comparison is poor. Because you
Right.
can just sit Micah on the edge and you can play every
You can do
down.
that.
But you can't do that with Isaiah
With
Simmons.
Isaiah Simmons, you're going to have to scheme him with stunts and twists. You're going to have to overload. You're going to have to use him on a delayed blitz.
Yeah, he's more of a blitzer than an edge rusher to me.
Yeah. Because Simmons does not have speed to power right now in his game.
Yeah, he's under 240.
Okay? Parsons has some of that.
Oh, yeah, he's like
He can get
255,
away with that. If Simmons gets locked up one-on-one, head up against an offensive lineman, he will get stoned. He will not get home. So what you have to do with him is line him up in gaps. You have to use him as part of twists and stunts. You have to use him as part of overloads. If you're going to put him on the edge, what you could do with a 5-man front, put him on the edge and stick him out there next to either Ojulari or Thibodeau.
Yep.
And then maybe if you send a safety, now all of a sudden it's 6 against 5. They don't know who to block, and maybe Simmons winds up with a free shot at the quarterback.
Or he'll get a one-on-one against a linebacker or in the linebacker,
A running back.
or a tight end
end.
for that matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, correct. No, I think I think you hit it 1,000%.
Simmons all along should have been used as a pass rusher as long as you can scheme him away from an offensive lineman straight up. Wink will do that. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about this last week, so I had indicated I think it's going to be, I had this conversation with John, it's going to be suitable week to week based on the personnel, meaning some weeks
And game plan.
he may be used as a guy off the edge. Another week they may actually use him as an insurance policy a little bit deeper down the field. I think it's all going to be based on who they're going up week to week, and we saw that last season. I mean, how many times did we see guys were active, got a lot of snaps, and then the following week it was like the Bill Belichick school of thought.
Right.
It's like Casper the Friendly Ghost. They're gone in a blink of an eye, right? He does that with running backs, the Patriots. They'll start a guy, he'll be the workhorse. The following week he'll be inactive, and you're like, what's going on here? I think there's a little bit of that to Wink's defense.
I will add there's one other component where Simmons could be very, very useful, and that's against your slot tight end.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah, we actually talked about this on last week's show with Lance as well.
Did you?
Called in and said, look, we should, if there's a really good athletic tight end, you can do something. All right, this game, you're manning up this tight end because he's got the size and speed to do it.
Beat the hell out of that tight end off the
Yep,
line.
100%.
Because there's not a cornerback alive that's going to be able to win a physical battle against the 6'4", 250-pound tight end.
Oh, he's not.
It's not going to happen.
Yes.
It's not going to happen. You could take Simmons against the Kelsey type and say when he's out there in the slot or on the boundary, you go out there and just beat him up off the line and don't give him that release. That could be another way to use him, but I think primarily he will be a blitzer. He will be a rusher.
Let's wrap up the show with Len in Columbia, Maryland. Len loves putting the 53 together. I know this is one of your favorite times of the year, right, Len?
Oh, it sure is. It sure is. Thanks for taking my call.
Yep.
You know, maybe I've been around this all too long. Maybe Paulie will relate to my statement.
Well, Len, Paul has definitely been around for too long. You're right about that.
Yeah. I just want to say, it's been a rivalry for me since 1970 when they played that first preseason game, Paulie, at the Yale Bowl.
Well, I went to Yale Bowl too. I understand it.
I know.
But today,
and by the time that game was over, you know, it wasn't at the start. But by the time that game was over and the Jets were rolling it up, and they won pretty easily, as you'll remember, and had a really good time on the field while they were doing it, it's become a rivalry to me. I'm not going to use the word HATE because you really shouldn't be using that kind of word today, but I dislike the Jets immensely.
And that's okay, Len.
I just want to go. I want to go on record.
No, that's fine.
No, but disliking him doesn't mean it's a rivalry, though. I think those are two different things.
Well, look, I think it could be a rivalry for the
me,
fans, maybe not necessarily for the two teams.
But as a fan, Len, if I told you, hold on, Len, give me a second here, because I want to challenge you here a little bit. The Giants play the Jets in the regular season this year. You guys following me?
We're following.
If I said to you that you could beat the Jets at the expense of a game against Philly, Washington, or Dallas, would you really do that? Because the Jet rivalry in your mind is that important? Would you really do that? I don't think so.
Good question.
Bingo.
Yeah, from the standings perspective,
Paulie, you're probably right.
Well, the other thing is...
You're probably right.
But Len, how about this? I have a follow-up for you real quick.
I just wanted to make a point.
No, Len, real quick. I have a question for you. After the division games, would you take the win over the Jets versus any other game on the schedule? Aside from the division games.
Oh, yes.
Okay. That was a quick one, too. That was a quick answer. I like it.
But from a mathematical standpoint, it's not a good answer because that doesn't help you in terms of tiebreakers and everything.
It doesn't.
NFC games.
It doesn't.
NFC games do.
Common opponents, third division tiebreakers, common opponents. Every NFC East team plays the Jets.
No, but I'm saying there's other things ahead of that, though, in terms of the priority list.
Only
for
division.
The tiebreakers.
Only division.
Yeah, I thought there was another one in between that.
No, it's head-to-head, division record, and then in the division tiebreakers, common opponents.
So that's the third one is my point.
You're talking about if there's a conference tiebreaker involved in a wild card.
Correct.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying. It's about the NFC opponents that you played, not
for what it's worth, Len.
Yeah, that's
outside the division is not inside the division.
For what it's worth, I still have a lot of heat against the 49ers, okay, for what it's worth. And that would be a game that I'd really want.
Len, I'm sorry. Finish up. You got it.
All right. Yeah.
Oh, you.
Let me go. I just want to respond to Lance.
Yep.
Lance, for all the times I've been on this show and for as long as I've been on the show, I have never pretended. I'm not an expert. I'm a fan, Lance.
Sure. Well, I'm not saying anything. Who's accusing
I'm
you of anything?
Right?
That's fine.
So there we go. You know, I dislike the Jets, and I want to win that game.
I'm not saying you're not entitled to have your opinion, Len. When did I ever say that?
Okay.
You don't have to defend yourself.
No, I didn't say. Yeah. I thought you. I just thought you were minimizing it a bit. That's all.
Well, I disagree with you. I don't look at it the same way. And I also, even from a fan perspective, I find it hard to believe, Len, that you're having conversations in passing and going to, let's say, if you were a Giants and a Jets fan, you said, yeah, man, 1995, we beat you in the preseason, and we got a participation trophy as a result of that. Man, I remember those golden days. I would love to hear a conversation and be a fly on the wall if that actually takes place in terms of bragging rights. That's my point.
Okay, thank you. I missed. I heard Paul say that he did not include Darnay Holmes. John, did you include Darnay Holmes on the fifth?
None of us did.
Oh, none of you did. Okay, wow. All right, boy, that's a tough cut. I'm going to predict. I'm going to predict he's going to make it. He's going to make the team.
He's close.
I'm glad you mentioned something about that block on McCain. I thought it was maybe some kid trying to make the roster. I didn't realize it was Randall Cobb.
Yeah,
Did you say
crazy.
Randall Cobb?
Yeah, it was Randall Cobb,
Randall
which actually made it for me. To your point, Len, very surprising that he would do that.
That was more than an illegal block. Okay,
Now, the only good thing is that
you want to say unnecessary. You want to make it unnecessary roughness. Frankly, I think the guy should have been let off the field.
Now, the only good thing, Len, is that I do not believe he got him helmet to helmet. I think he got shoulder to helmet. So it was. I don't
those helmets clicked.
Did they click?
They did click. They did click.
But I have seen more egregious helmet to helmet than that.
So have I.
Yeah.
But the helmets did click, and that just really made me wince.
No, fair
enough. That at that point in the preseason, not just in the game.
100%. We agree.
Yeah, I mean, come on. The long snapper duel. It is kind of interesting that they've kept that second long snapper around for as long. You think if they didn't think he had a chance to make the team, that maybe they would release him a little earlier, just to give him an opportunity to land someplace else. He has gotten down the field a couple of times and been in position to make a tackle, to make a big special teams play. The bad news is he's missed the tackles. So I think it's probably going to be Kreider who's going to make it. But it is kind of interesting, as you said, that they kept him around for.
Well, it is a specialized position, Len, and maybe they just felt that if during the course of the camp, if Casey Kreider comes up with a sore back or a sore knee or a sore hammy, they don't want to have to go shopping to go get one.
Yeah, but they didn't do it with the place kicker or the punter. I always wonder. I kept thinking, here's Gano trying 57-yard field goals, 56-yard field goals in this game. Geez, pretty easy to pull a muscle on a kick like that.
The Niners have two kickers on their roster, and both got hurt.
I will say this. Years ago, they would always have an extra kicker or an extra punter in training camp because they wanted to alleviate the workload. What they do now is that they give those guys off. They hardly work out at all during practice.
Oh, I know.
Okay?
They've got the machine.
They use the machine. They use the jugs gun. And sometimes they won't even do that. They'll actually just give the ball to the return guy, and they'll say, let's just pretend that this was the kick. And then they'll just tell the return guy, okay, go. And they just try to simulate it that way because they want to make sure these legs are rested. They don't want their kickers and punters to have to do too much.
Yeah. The Wandale issue, they may have to activate him. He may not be physically unable to perform. I mean, there's no hiding these guys. I don't think you can just say. I mean, don't league doctors check in this kind of situation?
No, if he's on training camp PUP, he has every right to then carry over to the regular season PUP. There's nothing that they have to go through 75 steps or whatever it may be. I mean, it's another thing. I think your point is highlighted when you see right before the 53 is finalized and they throw a guy on IR. And he has a hamstring issue, and it's not a season-ending injury, and that may be a way to hide a guy. But they could also work out an injury settlement where he then later on can come back or he could then sign elsewhere. That, to me, it's putting a guy on IR before the 53 is more of a degree of hiding a guy as opposed to PUP.
Len, the only medical instance that I know of where the league has an independent medical guy involved is for the concussion protocol.
Okay, I got you. Can we go to roster size? One quick question on roster size.
Yeah, real quick.
You can still get the 48, right? But to get the 40, I'm talking about dressing. On Sunday. You can get the 48, but you have to carry an eighth. You have to carry 8 offensive linemen. Is that still the rule?
I don't think the offensive lineman rule is still in. I think you can just activate any 2 players from the practice squad that you want.
Right.
Well, I'm talking about from the 53. Forget the practice squad for a second. If you dress 48, what's the minimum amount that you can dress?
You can only get the 48 if you bring the 2 guys up from the practice squad.
You go from 53 to 55.
Okay.
Yes.
So there's no rule anymore about if you carry an 8th lineman.
No, that was only for the COVID year, I believe.
They took that. They took that away, and they've decided to institute or keep the 2 practice squad activations per weekend.
Correct.
And I like that rule, actually. I think it's a great rule.
Yeah, so you have the same number of inactive players, Len. You just have the chance to add 2 guys from the practice squad.
Okay, so you start with 46. If you don't want, you don't have to activate anybody from the practice squad.
You're not
you
obligated
can
to
play
do that.
46.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is you
Okay.
still have 7 inactive, no matter how you spin it.
And by the way, the
So
reason
that's the important way to look at it.
and why a team wouldn't want to do that is twofold. Because one, you can only do that to an individual player twice before you either have to add him to the active
3 times.
roster. Is it 3 now?
3.
I thought it was
It's 3.
twice. Is that
It's
the
3.
3?
It's 3.
All right,
It's
3
been
times.
3.
You have to add him to the active roster or cut
Okay.
him. And it also costs you money on your salary cap
Bingo.
to add guys to the active
Yep.
roster each week. So those
Yep.
are the 2 reasons why you wouldn't want to add the guys on a weekly basis.
Yeah, we've had probably 100 guys who've come through training camp. It wasn't just 90. We added a few guys, like Simmons, for example.
Sure.
In the end, we're going to get 53 guys on this roster. It's going to be a pretty darn good roster. This is okay. This is okay. This is going to be a pretty good. This is going to be a pretty good football team, and I think we're going to be challenging for a playoff spot. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, I agree.
Hey, let's go Giants! Thanks for taking my call, guys.
Yeah, luckily we'll have a whole nother week of shows to kind of preview the rest of the season here. We want to kind of do the roster today and tomorrow, and then we're going to have Wednesday, we'll react a little bit, and then Thursday or Friday, we're just going to be looking ahead to the regular season, and same thing early next week, and then we turn our attention to Giants and Cowboys week 1. It's coming fast and furious, boys. Good show today.
Well, let's
Absolutely.
go.
Yeah.
Let's
And
go.
remember, 4 o'clock tomorrow, we will have our 53-man roster. We'll have a Giants huddle immediately after that announcement for a reaction. And then, of course, we'll have Big Blue Kickoff Live the following day at 11 a.m. To talk about that as well. And then next week, remember, we're going back to our normal time at 12:30, but we were at 11 a.m. for the rest of this week. For Paul Dottino, for Lance Medow, I'm John Schmeelk. We'll see you next time on Big Blue Kickoff Live.